As you notice on my stream title, it says PTR is coming out January 6th, 2 p.m. KST. So what PTR is public test realm. What you do is you go inside and then you get to try whatever the new build or whatever the balance patch is. The reason why I don't reply it every time is because it's a repeat question. But if you just have one time of one session of just talking about the thought process going back and forth as a reference, it's a good idea to have it. I really don't care if you guys get MVP if you don't like your class, but sharing like a reference points is pretty good to me. Since I played with so many different classes while I'm playing, Legion raids every week, I pug the most out of the group as well. And also at the same time, this game is actually really hard. It's a non-target. It's not a targeting MMO. So based on the class, it's also based on the player, and the player cannot ask a question of, is this class particularly the best if you play at the highest level? But the thing is, you don't know, you as a player can play at the highest level. So that's the important part too. For example, I can't play Arcana or I can't play Reaper even better because the class is very hard. But some people may think that the class is easy. So that kind of disclaimer needs to be there because I think it's fair to show how this class has such potential. But again, it might hurt a little bit to some of you guys, but you have to put a disclaimer on the very beginning that this is based on my experience. And even if it's wrong, you may be right. That's what I wanted to make sure to let you guys know at this point. Okay, so let's get started. So this particular PTR change, last PTR change, revamped like a bunch of classes. They adjusted a bunch of numbers and they buff and nerf and whatever. So I think the best type of prediction we should have is there's 3 categories. There's gonna be something like, I can categorize this as remaster. So these count as a remaster to me because they added a new skill and they had a complete like animation change and all these things. And then there's a number change, which is like, a percentage change, which is something like a Soulfist. And there's a QOL change too. And this is Gunlancer, where bash range. There's a not much change too, and that's like a striker, because striker they just said lightning kick not going through no more. Like that's like, it's so minuscule that doesn't really matter. So these are the 4 categories that I will do the prediction based on, and then give you like a very, very short like a commentary. I think they're just gonna get another QOL change. So I do always complain that Gunlancer's identity is weird. They don't do damage, they give synergy, but everything else is just a perfect class. It's really good to have a Gunlancer in your party, as if your stagger's nice, your destruction's nice, and I have no problem getting into a party. The presence of a Gunlancer does increase the clear rate of a raid. However, it doesn't make it faster. I'd rather take a pure DPS than a Gunlancer if you go to a homework speedrun party. But if you want to do like a regular homework party and you want to increase the chillness, like as in the comfort of beating the actual raid from Grell 1 to 6 or a Con 1 to 3, you always want to have a Gunlancer, but not 2, because you would lack damage at that point. In blue in particular, I think this is more of a copium, may change a little bit. Class engraving may change a little bit, I think. This is why I bought it. This is why I bought blue Gunlancer engraving, just in case. Just in case the blue might change. Blue might need level 3 engraving, and the double engraving might not work, because it feels like Smilegate is trying to shift away for double engraving builds, and we gotta talk about it a little more later. Destroyer Rage. So this particular class, I don't think not much is gonna change at all, because this class is good. But however, gravity training might need a bit of might get another bit of number change. The reason being is because Destroyer Ragehammer is a very high tier class right now. It's because of particular reasons, because damage isn't everything. The fact that he has the synergy, he has taunt, he has stagger, he's very tanky, and has super armor at the same time, the amount of damage that he does is really high. So people do put that into consideration, And since it impacts the clear rate of the raid itself, people do happen to put them a little bit higher in the list. Berserker, BT, and Mayhem. I think these two classes is gonna get a remaster. It's because you guys gotta get females. There's gonna be female Slayer. And I think Berserker is one of the most smojest class in the game right now. I think it sucks. And in terms of the playstyle, in terms of the performance, everything else, they do underperform. Even if this particular class underperform, that doesn't mean that they're unable to clear the raid. This is why this game is actually pretty balanced. And I am really glad that before, when you guys are playing Argos, you guys are really serious about, you know, which class is better, which class is dead, etc. But as times go, Clown, Bro Shaza came out now. Bro Shaza up to normal. Everyone is actually speaking about the same tone as me of saying uptime is the most important. Uptime, uptime, uptime. But with all that being said though, which is going to be shown at the tier list later, Berserker, even if you play it perfectly, there's no way you can beat certain classes in this game. It just doesn't work. And the risk that they have, especially Berserker Mayhem, the amount of risk that this particular class has, you don't get anything back. So that's the smooch part about it. But I do like the playstyle of Mayhem because it's quick. Is because that's how Mayhem should be. You're just like slashing and stuff. The effects are really nice and all these things. But the thing is, all these guys are going to be moving to female Slayer, right? So kind of worried about that one. But if they happen to get some love, they need some love, right? So I'm going to put that there. These guys need some love. In a marketing standpoint, Mayhem used to be 9k gold. Oh, it went up to 1k. People are thinking about the PTR right now because this one, it was low as 600. Let's talk about Paladin. So Paladin as a support, Paladin as a solo DPS. The biggest problem with Paladin support, Paladin is the most boring support out of the three. So I think they're not touching this at all. But my hopium is, in general, I want more support engravings. Hopium. I think support's too linear. The thing about RPG is when you make your character stronger, when you do like a better support, you have to feel that your character is getting stronger. But a support is always on the rice eating stage. The support is cheap. But if you think about Vital Point and Drops of Ether and any other engraving starters that are out there, do you really need them? No. And my answer is no, because you can cover it with something else. So supports can actually be okay with 4-3s with really good combat stats. That makes it even cheaper alternative for you to play. But why is everyone waiting for supports for Bro Gate 6? You guys always tell me I'm waiting for support. I'm waiting for support. It's always last support. Supports never come in. Why do you think that's the case? Because it's boring. Okay? There has to be like a different way for it, and the Paladin is the worst case scenario. All of my Paladin friends that play only Paladin, they don't play anymore. The Paladin player, when you play, if you like Paladin, the joy of Paladin is this. 100% buff cycling uptime is the most fun part about Paladin. That can that be adjusted to be, you know, a little more fun? That's just like my question. Because other supports do have, you know, different options. Right? They do have different options to make it the playstyle more fun. But either way, I don't think they're going to change as much, even though I talk so much about it. Because I don't think they're focusing on supports right now. But if they do, that's my hopium, support engravings. I want like a big support change. Because if more people play support, there will be no problems doing the raid. Because let's do a quick question to the chat. Saying, when's the last time you actually found a support fast while doing a bro run or any party in general? That's what the chat feels, right? That's why I wanted to ask chat, because you guys are actually playing the game, and then this is how I feel, and if you guys agree, it is what it is. How do you make more support players to play? You make support more fun. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, the reason why we have the Paladin solo DPS mode is because one other reason why supports are boring is because the solo content sucks. And they go like, oh, you can just get a DPS engraving to make your, Chaos Dungeon faster. Yeah, sure. You can do that. But Whatever the argument is, support solo runs are so smooge. So I think all the supports should have something like, it's not gonna be that much. The prediction is not much. But my hopium is all get some numbers or buffs for solo content. I still haven't done tower on my supports. But is what it is. I thought robust Soulfist sucks, but I was wrong. It's because I'm not good. But after I meet all these different players that are really good at the game, they are, much better. They're so good at it, and they have no problem getting Crow Fighters. I'm going to talk about it at the actual balance patch anyways, but the prediction, robust Soulfist is not as bad as you think, and same for EO too. And they're actually in a pretty high up in the air if the player is good. The problem about robust Soulfist or EO Soulfist is it's extremely difficult. I'm gonna show you guys an example. This is like a super scuffed drawing. So LOSTARK DPS, right? How it works is, let's say your damage is really high up here, and then you go down here, and then you go up here. So surprisingly, people don't know the difference between consistent damage and burst damage. How that works is, if I give you guys a little bit of rundown, is robust Soulfist goes hype 3. So they go hype 3 for 20 seconds. And they have a recovery time of 11 seconds. What does that mean? For 20 seconds, they're as the strongest it can be. 11 seconds, they don't do much. And then the 20 seconds again, they do a lot of damage. And Sorks, when they go ignition, they're huge damage. And then when they're off ignition, they're building meter. And then they go ignition again and then do big damage. Why is this important? Long time ago, consistent DPS classes were really good. Let's say consistent DPS is supposed to be lower than burst, right? Let's say they're like this. When these guys are paused, this is the time when they catch up. And when they're paused, this is the time when they catch up. This is also including, let's say, he missed this Doomsday. And then you have it here. And he missed this Doomsday again. Like that. And then you have the consistent DPSers keep doing the same thing. And then they can get caught up with the burst damage. So if you work in a different time frame of the graph, it would be like this, as in the number of DPS that they do is it would work like a staircase, right? However, consistent DPS is just a line. But the staircase can be very long here if you miss the Doomsdays. And then it goes up and it goes up. So why is this important? This is a very basic knowledge. I know you guys are getting bored about this basic knowledge, but it blows my mind every day I stream. At least 200 people don't know this. I looked at my logs sometimes. They just don't know how these things work. LOSTARK, you don't fight forever. This is why scarecrows are useless. The problem is, as the meta increases, whereas we are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, us getting the DPS up to here, which is the mechanic, the burst people gets it up to here before we even get close. That's why consistent DPS can never beat it. Also, at the same time, people say Surge is good, Surge is good, Surge is good. The reason why Surge sucks on a homework party is because the boss is doing a cutscene before he even stacks 20. That's the real reason why Surge sucks. But Surge is good on the top tier is because the fights are much, much longer. And they take DPS pies. You call it the DPS pie. So someone in YouTube called me that I'm an idiot for saying DPS pie. It's like taking DPS pies. As in, let's say it's a pie. Let's say the Valton's HP is a pie. And then you land your Surge. The Surge player happens to land 20 stacks. He takes half the slice of the pie. That means he's going to get Cruel Fighter because he already took half of it. Valton doesn't generate HP. That's why in Korea you call it DPS pie. And bursts tend to take huge bites of the pie while the consistent DPSers taking little bites. And the reason why I'm saying this is because of, let's get into more details. Now that, I hope you guys are following me here. If you guys get this point, now let's get to some of the details. So why is Robust Soulfist good? Because she has a 20-second uptime, 11-second downtime, and then 20-second uptime, right? Therefore, this 20-second is a magic number. Bard's 3 bubble is 16. Most supports have a 10-second bubble. This is also important because Adrofin's 9 seconds. There are only few classes that can fit in their strongest skills in 9 seconds. Soulfist is actually one of them. Surprisingly, Gunslinger can fit all of it too, but it's very hard. So what you do is, as a Gunslinger, you use your high noon skill. So that's the perfect combination that you could do. Most people do practice it, but that's how things work. So with all that research done, I think they're just gonna get a number change. So we took a lot of time on talking about the basics, but I think we should have like a separate video talking about this a little more, giving more examples. But I think I covered the basics for it. I think I covered most of it. All right, so I think these two are getting a number change. I personally think Wardancer class needs a little bit of change. So the problem is, I don't think they're in a remaster range, but they're definitely in a QOL change range. This class is outdated. The reason why I think this class is outdated, Zeus calls this wind fart, right? The problem about wind fart is you can't turn it off. And why is turning it off bad? Sometimes you can't attack certain things. If you have a mechanic, if you attack it, you can mess up the mechanic. Every single class that has the same behavior can turn it off manually. This is the only class that can't turn it off. This is one of the major damage skill cannot be canceled. That's a problem. Since it does decent amount of damage, if you can cancel it on purpose and have the damage based on how long it started, it gives the user an ability to play it better. Turn on your energy combustion. Imagine he's about to go to a cutscene. You can press it again. If you get it, if you had it for 9 seconds, have 90% of the damage. If you only had it for 4 seconds, you have 40% of the damage. If you have it for 5 seconds, 50% of the damage. Why can't it change like that, right? That is one of the things that this particular class is missing. This calls for like a QOL change because it does make the class feel better, more enjoyable to play, okay? But since I don't know too much about Wardancer, like these are the stuff that I would assume that the Wardancer gets some love on. So Striker, SO and DB. So this is another point. Remember this thing? SO is this, and DB is this. Okay? Everyone has been saying Deathblow Striker's OP, Deathblow Striker's OP, Deathblow Striker's OP. There are more OP classes than Deathblow. Let me explain to you the reason why Deathblow Striker became really strong. So there's a card called the 3 Bald Guys. And then you also have the Lazanius. So what this card set does is it increases the back attack damage by 12%. And every 32 seconds, your elemental damage is increased by 24. This makes like 92 million lightning kick to 112 at least. And it procs every 32 seconds. Deathblow Striker's burst starts when he actually has the cooldown of the lightning kick ready and his rising tiger ready and everything else other ready. And at the same time, every 32 seconds, which is every 2 cycle of his skill, you have the Lazanius ready for the lightning kick for the bonus damage. As a support standpoint, if it's every 32 seconds, you can give at least 2 bubbles every time. Therefore, they're taking advantage of a certain thing. So if you have a really good support that gives bubbles and gives synergy and gives buffs accordingly to up to every 32 seconds of the lightning kick, he will do insane amount of damage. He bursts up, right? He'll burst a little higher, and then he bursts up, and then he bursts a little higher, just like that, because it's every 32 seconds. So in terms of change, I think they'll have a slight number change, but I don't think they'll touch much about it. I think Striker's in like in an okay point. It's the card that makes them really strong. It's not the class itself. Like the class itself is strong too. Striker itself have disadvantages and advantages. So it's not like OP class from it, but maybe they're waiting for a certain change. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel like, because they only have limited classes to give balance patches to, right? There are way more other classes that needs a bigger change than this. And since I don't play Striker as much, I can't tell you guys as much. Scrapper. I remember a long time ago when you guys started this game, you guys visited my stream. My stream was pretty small back then. What's the best class, etc. So the class that I always recommend you guys was Gunlancer, Sorceress, Scrapper, and a support. and most of you guys said, you sure this guy plays the game properly? Because Scrapper is really bad. Everyone was arguing with me that the Scrapper was bad. But I kept telling everyone that this class is the easiest to play, and your performance is going to be averagely good because the class is easy. This class used to be a setup class. Your charging blow was like bash, as in it increases your attack power. So every skill needed to be comboed with charging blow. So they were kind of limited to it. Now that charging blow is removed and they had a flat increase of all damages. So the class was easy enough already, it became even easier than that. When I just started this game, Shock Scrapper was literally garbage. It was so bad. But after the series of changes and buffs that they got recently, they're really good now, right? So when people say that they're gonna get the changes, I don't think they're not gonna get like a number change, but it feels like they could get a QOL change because the effects are outdated and the overall feel of this class feels outdated because the class is just so simple. Because if you lower the damage of this particular class, no one's gonna play with them, because if they don't do damage and if they play like shit, like who's gonna play it? I think Glavier is going to get a remaster, but you gotta be very careful here. Don't get too happy because they might not get it. I think they're in the lower end of like the remastered list. The problem about Glavier is her crit rate for Pinnacle, because she can get 100% crit rate if she wants to for the red skills. Glavier is always good on equalized content too. So there's that problem. And as for Control spams all the blue skills, but Entropy, there's a thing. Spec Entropy classes like Striker is really good, but Swiftness Entropy class, there's a big problem about Swiftness Entropy class. So check this out. The reason why Entropy class Spec is good and Swiftness is not good is because, remember this chart? The problem about Swiftness Entropy is you gotta stay at the back the whole time and do cycle skills consistently, right? So they're doing like this. They're kind of like doing this. Again, their DPS is divided and they have to stay at the back the whole time. Like, what kind of boss gives you your back the whole time? And then you go to a cutscene, and then you come back from a cutscene. You have to cycle it up again. You have to set up again, all that stuff there. The reason why Taijutsu is good is because her damage is so high, even though she's Swiftness. But Control Glavier, not as much. And Pinnacle is Hitmaster. But you know when you say Pinnacle, they're doing Entropy Pinnacle. Entropy Pinnacle is not a burst class. It's a consistent damage class. That's another problem, like as in the spec stat itself. But since we're going over the class itself, Glavier does feel a little outdated. But the problem is Glavier is not that bad because she has synergy, she has rotation, she has 2 counters, she has the reflect, the equalized content itself. She was doing fine. It feels chill. It feels fun. I think it's okay. And Glavier players keep playing Glavier is because of that, right? It's because of the playstyle that they provide to the player. And is that class itself going to be so bad to a point that you can't beat any raid? No. Having Glavier is no problem. Even if you have Glavier in like a con, whatever, they have no problem doing damage. But they die less. They die less too because they're just built really well. So it'd be like a remaster. They're in a remaster for sure, but like in a low priority. Or a slight number change. Now let's go to the Hunter section. We've been talking about it. We talked about Fighter and Warrior, right? Now Hunter. Here's what I think about Gunslinger. I think Gunslinger's in a good spot. She has a budget option for PM. This is PM Gunslinger, guys. She has a budget option, the 6M. She has a high ceiling option, which is 7M, and you can remove all swiftness to put it to spec for even higher DPS ceiling. The reason why there's a lot of people fighting about Gunslinger in Korea is there's 2 reasons. There's a lot of Gunslinger players. The ability, and each of these players' ability go from they play with one hand like a godlike uptime. Therefore, it's really extremely hard to determine if a Gunslinger is good or not. Because if someone complains about Gunslinger, their rifle, their focus shots off cooldown over 10 seconds. We're not talking about like classes in detail. We'll probably think about it later, but I don't think anything will be changed here. However, so TTH is a different thing. What TTH does is it's more condensed. For example, TTH has they have an advantage of being able to compress their DPS, as in like in a much faster. We call that DPS compression. In TTH though, you have focus shot, you have target down, and then you have perfect shot, and then you also have catastrophe, right? So these 4 skills are compressed, so it's faster than 9 seconds. The point is the time for you guys to land these 4 skills is much shorter than the 9 second of fitting all these skills in. So you call that damage compression. Like your damage, your ability to do damage is compressed, and the highest compression is what? Is something like Striker, right? It's 1 lightning kick and 1 rising uppercut, all that stuff. And let's say for Destroyer, it's perfect swing. Surge is not damage compression, and the reason why is because you have to stack it. So when you say damage compression, it is how much maximum amount of skills you can do in such a short time. This is also why by paper, Smilegate does say Deadeye has the biggest potential damage. We're going to talk about Deadeye in a bit, is because Deadeye has the shotguns, right? The major shotgun damage. He has 4 of them. And then he has the pistol skills. And he can use all of that very, very quickly. Less than like 6 or 7 seconds. So in a very short time, he can do a bunch of damage, which is a great compression. However, I hear people complaining that the class engraving for TTH does not impact Awakening. So Awakening just never crits all the time. But the thing is, if TTH engraving impacts Awakening as well, I think it might be too strong. People have saying that, but I don't like, that's what people have been saying. I don't know because I don't play TTH enough, but we'll see how that goes. So I don't think nothing's gonna change much here either. Or either they could do something like a like a small number change. We were just talking about Deadeye. So Deadeye preferably was supposed to be doing the highest amount of damage on paper, as Smilegate said, right? And this is due to damage compression. And I think it's due to, these days, a lot of the classes are getting so strong to a point that you just don't have a chance to do any DPS. The class itself is in a good place, I think, but it's in a lower area because the amount of risk that you have as a Deadeye, the performance isn't rewarding compared to other classes that is existing right now. But what is the patch going to be for, if there is ever a patch for Deadeye? For enhanced weapon, I would think this is also QOL change, and the reason why I think it's a QOL change is because the way he operates with the shotgun and the way he operates with the pistol and the way he needs to utilize his crit synergy is a little wonky. The quick step skill, where you rotate, right? Where you rotate and then you move around, that one doesn't have crit synergy like Gunslinger does. It's the nades that they do it. It feels like that I could get like another crit synergy to me as a handgun to give people more options of mobility, and the animation of a shotgun sometimes get less harder. This one is definitely, I think, is one of the class that could get a remaster. The sole reason of you play Pistolier is for fun. Other than that, I have no idea why you would have Pistolier Deadeye. Because if you guys tell me, if you would gatekeep because of a class, if you had to choose one, which would it be? I think it would be Pistolier. It needs some help. This class is definitely very fun, but it's lacking so much. And you have to put this in mind that this class seems very cheap, but it uses spec as well. It's kind of interesting. So people do like a lot of crack movements. It's super fast. It's not bad. Again, as I said, for beginning of this conversation that we had, it's a disclaimer. Every single one of these classes have no problem clearing the raid because we just played with the Pistolier like 2 days ago, right, on the Con Hard, and he had no problem. He just never appeared on the family photo though, right? That's the problem. We have to think about Pistolier in general. What does he do? He actually doesn't do anything. Does he do a lot of damage? His stagger's okay too. They're squishy. You gotta think about that. They're squishy too. So other than just having like a real niche way to play the particular raid, I think whatever that is, that's fine. If Smilegate really wants to have all the classes to be enjoyable to play, they want to be very fun to raise it as well, they probably need to work on it because it feels so weird. This class is just weird. No matter how well you play with Deadeye Pistolier, you're not gonna be Sork damage. You know what I mean? Even if you spend the same amount of money. They don't touch the Pistolier in a certain way. I would actually not recommend making this class at all. You just gotta be. It's gonna be brutal. It's for people who already have a lot of Banes and they want something. They want something new. They want something fresh. Sometimes I see people arguing in Inven about Firepower Artillerist is not bad and like whatever. I kind of like agree and disagree at the same time, but it is not Barrage level. It's like I don't understand why you would play FP when you can play Barrage. How their stuff works is some people say like their damage is condensed. So, okay, so you fire the homing missile, and you fire the other air raid. You put the turrets down. You fire your machines, right? So it's fun. So you get to walk around. This is a swiftness build too. Like you have a fast swiftness build. You spam all the skills, and if you hit boundless mana, you can just spam everything. So like you can just keep doing that. But the thing is, the numbers itself you see is actually not that high. The build itself, it seems to be very lacking compared to Barrage, and their overall DPS is actually not that great either. It's obviously under Gunslinger. So in this case, I think it'll be just a number change. And now Barrage. No, you know, I was just joking about like, you know, I talked to Wineblow and everything about how it's like, oh, this guy's gonna get nerfed, this guy's gonna nerf, whatever. Barrage, to me, I think is one of the best class, hands down, if it works for you. But the reason why no one really plays Barrage, it actually makes you angry because you have to set up like a siege tank and fire all your weapons, and if you make a mistake, you die. That's unfortunate, right? But Barrage itself is one of the best, highest DPS class in this whole game. Like, people would say, like, I'm really, like, highly putting up to his thing, but it is what it is. So you transform, you do damage, right? You transform, you know, you're gathering your meter, and then you do your damage again. You gather your meter, you do your damage again. Gather your meter, do your damage again. Gather your meter, do your damage again. And also another thing that people have been forgotten. If you do your awakening, you can transform twice very quickly. So it's kind of like that. And if you play with a Spec Bard can rotate 2 bubbles every time, or they can just rotate 3 bubbles every cooldown on the courage to get it synced up with the Barrage mode. So they can probably have the 3 bubble buff on your every 2 transformation. If it's going out super fast. But the thing is, most of the time it's like 1.5. Like I keep doing it. I need some more data. Like sometimes I play with Wineblue. Every time I have 2 bubbles, he always transforms. What does that mean? If the next one, if I want to give him 3 bubble, I can use Awakening, right? Awakening for the 1 bubble, and then I have 2 bubbles, and I just give him that. I think they're definitely gonna get a number change. As a joke, I said they gotta get a nerf of 12.5%, but it's just a joke, chat. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get nerfed, like 6%, at least 6%. But even if they get nerfed 6%, they'll be still strong. But not many people play it due to their gameplay. Not many people play it due to their gameplay. Now moving on to Scouter. I have more of like a little bit of different opinion compared to other people that are in Inven. Evolution Scouter's damage is fine. And then they go like, whoa, what do you mean it's fine? It's so weak. It's so weak. The goddamn class takes 2 gems. I don't know what they want. You know what I mean? The Scouter's biggest advantage, they're tanky because of the shield. They transform much faster. All these good stuff. And then it's speedy play. It's ranged. It's rather easy to hit. You can aim for a little bit more ceiling by hitting all the R laser to the head for additional damage. With that though, the damage itself is not the problem of Scouter. I think the biggest problem of a Scouter is the QOL. For example, a long time ago, you used to have 2 different spacebar cooldowns of Scouter. When you transform, you get to have another spacebar, and when you transform back, you get to have a spacebar again. And if you de-transform manually, you don't get the meter back if you transfer back too fast. You actually have to wait until the meter gains back to a certain point. The overlay sucks. Yeah, that's a good point too. The reason why the spacebar thing was removed is because it was OP in PvP. Like, having 2 spacebar is actually not that game breaking for PvE. Also, at the same time, Scouter itself, his counters in his major DPS skill. So they switched it to an A skill before at the last balance patch, and they reverted back. I actually don't know why they did that, but Scouter doesn't need a damage buff because their floor is connected to the ceiling. Because it uses 2 gems, and it's forever going to be that way. If Scouter wants to have a higher ceiling, they need to split the gems out into every single skill then. That's what they need to do. But no one's going to do that. No one's going to play Scouter if that's the case, right? If this class, if you want to do high damage, big damage, be MVP, whatever, either you aim for like super high uptime, which I sometimes do, and if I get an MVP with a Scouter, I feel real good because I know I did a real good uptime, and people have been missing Doomsdays, okay? Which connects to the next one. AT Scouter requires so much maneuvering, a manual input, and the output is literally toothpicks. For example, in order for you to get the speed buff, the drone needs to be with you, right? When you're using a drone skill, the fucking thing flies away from you. So you have to press X every time to get that bonus, right? That means if your drone is bugged out and then you can't go back in time, you're losing that much buff. And also at the same time, have you guys ever used the baby drones and the organ missiles, all that? Dude, the projectile of those things is so bad. You miss half your missiles because like the clumpness of the projectile is so, right? But if AT Scouter is an option for you to have a higher ceiling versus the EV Scouter being the cheaper version, the amount of money that you spend on the gems and the money of the engravings and money of the stuff that you invest into, you're supposed to have an output, right? So this guy, he's squishy. His shield's bad. Your movement is super fast. You have to rely on a very long animation skill, which is the Energy Buster. Your drones don't move most of the time. If your drones go too far, he doesn't even operate properly. The animation itself is really bad. It needs like a remaster. That's what I think. If they don't change drastically on those classes, I don't know what to say. Like, no one should just play this class. No one plays it. There's a reason why no one plays it. It's a hipster. Next one, Sharpshooter. This guy, I'm just gonna collapse it and say remaster. I feel so bad about this class. This class has the smartest players in LOSTARK, I think. Whenever I talk to a Sharpshooter main, what they do is they have so much passion. They have so much passion about Sharpshooter that they don't want to let it go. But they don't also want to accept the fact that this class sucks. Like, I'm just gonna say it out there. And then when I say sucks, it's not always damage. This class is so clunky and outdated. If you, into an extreme case of a comparison, if you compare Sharpshooter with an Aeromancer, it feels like Sharpshooter from a Stone Age. Like fighting with sticks, and Aeromancer has a AK-47. And the reason why the Sharpshooter is doing good damage on other raids is this. They're just so much better than you. That's what they are. Think about it this way. So this particular class, I have a Sharpshooter video. What's the true Gigacock build? When he does that rotation, he gets the exact same meter before the snipe lands. You see this over here? Before the snipe finishes, the meter fills up. So he throws the bird again, right? After getting that buff. There you go, see? So he's charging it up. The meter fills up naturally. And then you throw the bird, and you throw the bird third time. In my opinion, right? You're supposed to do that much more damage. Does that make sense? Like, what is this compared to you press one button of lightning kick? They're calculating it to the 0.1 second of rotating a certain skill 3 times, and you have to do double class in order for it to make this to happen with 900 spec required, so that you calculate on bracelet, ring, etc., whatever. It is so researched to the T. Does that make sense, chat? Just to be on an average damage class. That's the stuff that I wanted to talk about. But I mean, these guys are so smart. They figured it out. Think about it this way, chat. Who would figure this out? Like, someone would need to do the research and figure it out, right? Imagine you had no information whatsoever. Imagine how weak this would class be. Imagine if no one like researched this at all. But on top of the other side, Sharpshooter overall is very clunky and old. Yeah, the camera goes out, right? The camera goes out, and when you fire, the camera goes in. When you fire like the arrow hail, it goes back in again. It goes back out again. And when you fire another skill, the camera goes back in. It goes back out again. It's so bad. I wanted to say that this class is so old, so it needs a remaster. I'd be surprised if this class is not remastered. So my Sharpshooter friends, it's a little bit of copium, but it's not a strong copium. You should expect something real nice, I think. Sharpshooter damage is not the Sharpshooter what Sharpshooter needs. Damage is not what the Sharpshooter needs, chat. It needs to feel smooth. It needs to feel enjoyable. Bard support. I got a lot of things to say. No, not a lot. Just one. You know what? Just one. Why is Symphonia 12 meters when fucking Artist is 24? It's double this. It's double the fucking range. Awakening range, please. And this one, more. That's all you need. It's just a well-balanced class. It's just that the biggest problem about this particular class is the awakening range is so outdated. Every other supports do have it, so I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if they buff the awakening range. That's about it. They don't need anything else. They don't need cleanse. Bards actually don't need cleanse. They have something even better called CC immune. Maybe another point that I wanted to add was, this is the same for every single support. Guys, you know the MVP is going to be changed where how much damage buff you apply to, you might be MVP. If that is the case, I want to know a better way to tell my party mate that you are buffed. For example, I saw one of a real good example is, let's see, you see these yellow numbers, right? You see these yellow numbers? Why can't this be like orange or something when we have a 3 bubble in? Does that make sense? Like, we need some more QOL to have proper buff to the DPS players so that we know what we're doing. That's missing. Here's a good point that the one of the chatter that says, I only know when I get buffed by Bard because I play Bard myself. But the thing is, DPSs who have never played support, they don't know when the buffs are coming in. Like, we need some kind of more highlight. At the same time, when we apply something like a CC immune, right? When we apply something like a CC immune, it needs to have something else other than just a stupid ass icon over here. ATK will be depressed if PTR changes have nothing to do with all this. Nah, it's okay, because I'm completely fine with the balance right now. But it needs to it's for the better good. Okay, so that covers the Bard because I play Bard all the time, all this stuff. Summoner is actually one of the strongest class in this game. But here's the thing, chat. This is for people in Invent too. They should not believe what people are usually saying. For example, what I do, let's say I hate Summoner. I hate Summoner players because I don't have Summoner. I hate them, right? And then you see like a number thing, you kind of boast it up. You know what I mean? Like, as in, let's say Summoner does like 3 million DPS. When they write it on forum, their purpose is to nerf them. If it's their purpose to nerf them, obviously you're gonna lie to the forum that like she does 5 million, 6 million. For example, one time in Invent, someone got caught. Let's say they do the what do they call it? They were hitting the Scarecrow. So they were hitting the Scarecrow. So they were hitting it. She was hitting like all these numbers that you can never hit before. And then she showed the engraving, but he edited the video to show the engraving as a different engraving, but in essence he put like 9 3s and a 1 or something like that. But I'm not saying Summoner is weak though. Summoner is very, very, very strong, but it does not deserve the heat. Like, it does not deserve like all the hate. The reason why Summoner is so good is because she is perfect Pentagon, as in like the Pentagon of abilities, right? Right? You know where you have something like, when you have something like that, you have like damage, utility, right? You have all these things. Do you guys know that Summoner have cleanse too? Yeah, we have the speed, right? So hers is like a perfect Pentagon. She is very insane in Hell mode. She is Hitmaster. For consider her being a Hitmaster class. Being a Hitmaster class, she does way too much damage. So, and this is because they got remastered, but they're not gonna remaster again. So they will just have a number chain. And the problem is, if this high summoner is nerfed, they're just gonna go CO. Communication overflow. Because communication overflow, people think that it sucks, but these two are really good. They're both very good. They're jack of all trades and they do a lot of damage, and it takes you the minimum amount of effort. For example, if you play communication overflow, most of your damage is done by an AI anyways. And all you need to do is keep landing your ancient spear that is casting 0.5 seconds faster. Yep. You just spam all the buttons. And as for Summoner, like, I'm not gonna say nerf or buff, but there will be some form of number change within the Summoner. Okay, now the next mage. So Sork Ignition. So I think Sork Ignition is also a very strong class. I think she is basically the Sork Ignition. Sork is the definition of mage DPS. Because of the mage DPS that they do, their utility is very bad. As in, you can take out the counter if you want. They're slow. They can use the teleport for that, but they're slow. When I would say people are saying nerf, 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 etc., whatever, right? In my standpoint, if you're excelling at this particular point, you should not be good at the other stuff, if that makes sense. Therefore, if you go like Summoner versus Sork, in my honest opinion, I think Summoner is better because they have so much utilities and additional things that they can provide for the team. Sork only has damage. But again, when you guys play an MMO, ask yourself, what is my goal? And if your goal is, I want to do the biggest DPS, I want to challenge everyone else, and I want to have the highest DPS, I want to be MVP all the time for DPS, Sork is a good option. Therefore, that's why, even if it doesn't get nerfed, I wouldn't be surprised for Sork. Because that's her job. And in order for you to pull that much DPS, it's actually, you need to work hard for it. And then someone can go like, landing 2 Doomsdays must be very hard. But the thing is, this is also considering everything, the DPS thing that I've told you. The burst windows that I told you guys. Because it has cutscene, right? You have to land all your Doomsdays. And you have to land all your rhyme arrows when you're building the meter. Because if you don't do that, it snowballs and you do less DPS. Does that make sense? Sork though, if you see a number change, I wouldn't be surprised. If you don't see a number change, I still wouldn't be surprised. Because Sork is what they do. And then they feel that it is unfair. But there are plenty of other classes that can beat that too. Obviously, if you're a Sharpshooter player, you can complain about Sork Ignition. Because whatever the hell you do with a Sharpshooter, you can't beat Ignition's DPS. That's why you asked Ignition DPS to get nerfed. However, this is why Sharpshooter, if they get remastered to have a better QOL, feels more cleaner, feels safer, then you will feel more comfortable because that's going to be your advantage to beat the Sork Ignition's DPS because they can always make mistakes. That's how it should work. Now, Reflux. I think this needs a remaster, man. But I don't think they'll do it. It's not priority. Because Reflux sucks. I don't know why this exists. Because if you want to play a more comfortable Ignition, if you want to play a more comfortable Sorceress, play Summoner. If you want to play a more comfortable spec crit Ignition Sorceress, play Spec Swift. Why would you play Sork Reflux when you can play Communication Overflow Summoner with hella more utilities that you can do? It does more destruction. It has a pet running around. You could have shield if you want to. You give armor break. You have counter. Everything. But again, there was a disclaimer in the very beginning of the video. I mean, the very beginning of the conversation that I said, since people keep coming in, I'm going to say it multiple times. If a particular class is fun for you, you have to keep on playing it. I don't want to argue out of any class, because I am not arguing out of any class, actually. And you don't have to argue with me on this. If you're having fun, who has the rights to take away your fun in the first place? But people are complaining because of like gatekeeping and all that stuff, right? That's a different problem. That's a different can of worms. But either way, so Reflux fun part is the casting is super fast. You can teleport everywhere. If you play the mana burn Sorc, you get to spam a lot of skills, pianos. You see big effects, everything, and you also get sometimes MVP. It's just the worst version of Ignition Sorc. But the Ignition Sorc is more uncomfortable, right? Here, hence, this is the perfect example. The more uncomfortable your class gets, the higher damage it goes. Reflux, comfortable. Sorc, Ignition, not comfortable. So it's supposed to do more damage. Because some people in Korean invents, I see sometimes, they go like Reflux should do about the same damage as Ignition. Like, they're really those kind of people. My chat is actually very fair. Like, they understand. If you guys think Reflux should do about the same damage as Ignition, I think you should play a different game. Because I have never seen someone with that much ego or that greed. Arcanist, Empress, Arcanist, Emperor. I bet you this class is gonna get nerfed. This class, there's a statement in this game. When you play like League of Legends, like let's say you're in silver, like Elo, right? Silver Elo. If you play against a diamond on a line match, like a mid-line match, sometimes you feel so overwhelmed that you go like, oh my god, I can never beat this guy. That kind of stuff, that kind of feeling. It's called 벽을 느낀다. You feel a wall. You feel a wall in front of you. There's a wall in front of you. Since you feel what? This class, if a player's better, you just can't beat their DPS. These two. It's so good. And if you're lucky, it's even better. I think this class, if you are lucky, equals you should get MVP. Do you know why? Because this class is a gambler. You shouldn't be MVP. You should not be MVP if you're not lucky. You're MVP every time, and you're MVP even further if you're lucky. This is what this class is. You're MVP every time, right? But if you're lucky, they can even chase you. You just can't beat them. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking about this. This class is just broken. It's so strong. And all the Arcanist players agree too. It's too strong for the amount of, and then you know, some guys go like, oh, but this class is hard. It's definitely hard. But based on the justification of being difficult, it rewards way too much. At the same time, the reason why it's really strong is because it's reworked. All the stuff that's reworked. But I think I like this part. If you're lucky, you should get MVP. Like, if you're lucky, you should get MVP. Not like MVP every time and more MVP if you lucky. Let's get to the assassin part. All right. So this one's a remake. This is the same argument of what I told about the Scouter. So the Impulse, let me tell you something. Demonic Impulse Shadowhunter, mine doesn't even do 10 million damage DPS. But this 10 million damage DPS is finite, as in it's so easy to do DPS with the transformation class. Obviously, if I push a little further, it can be up to 11. But considering you only have 2 gems and you can reach that amount, it's actually really good. You're a consistent DPS, you're not supposed to do more than burst, because like by the time you're trying to do your DPS, the boss goes into cutscene. So for example, let's say the cutscene part starts here. I'm like doing the little linear DPS, linear DPS, linear DPS, and all of a sudden this burst DPS, the striker comes in, does a lightning kick, and then he goes to cutscene. So this is how much DPS I've done, and the lightning kick is how much this is how much DPS I've done. That's why you always never get MVP. But however, if this lightning kick misses, and then I get to do a little more, and then the lightning kick hits. Then so it's an equal amount of DPS pie, right? Therefore, when people are saying Shadowhunter and Scouters are weak, they're actually not. They're just looking weak compared to other classes. And this is someone that still have the class up to this much, and their biggest advantage of transformation classes is they're cheap. I have no problem doing a con hard with my Shadowhunter. I have no problem doing a con hard with my Scouter. Therefore, let's say you play a DI Shadowhunter, right? You play a DI Shadowhunter, it's nice, and you level it up, right? I thought they designed this, or yeah, the AT Scouter. I thought they designed it in a way that it provides higher ceiling. What does higher ceiling mean? Add more gems. If you add more level 10 gems, right? You spend that much more gold on the character, right? I think it's fair to assume that you're supposed to expect a lot more damage if you add another 700k level 10 gem. Does that make sense, guys? Now, considering this class adds 4 or 5 more level 10 gem, it's not that much difference in DPS. And this is because of 2 reasons. Even though they do a lot of damage, swiftness entropy classes are just built wrong. Their style their style play, the way how they're built, it's flawed. Because I was just talking about this when we were talking about fighters. If you're playing swiftness entropy, you have to be at the boss's back the whole time. Striker, you can just land your lightning kick once. So you're playing a consistent DPS at the back attack. Obviously, the graph is going to be a little bit higher, right? And when the boss moves around, you can't back attack. So it's going to go down. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to be like that. Since you're playing a consistent DPS class, the impact of buffs that you get is not as great. This does more damage than DI. Because mathematically, you're supposed to do more. But the fact that you get squishy, and with the amount of squish, you have to stay at the back the whole time to rotate your skills. You have to get the meters for it. With the amount of effort that you require to play Perfect Suppression properly, the amount of reward that you get is not even half of this. So I think it'll be more of a remake, because like I don't know what their decision is for Scouter and like Shadowhunter, because they're not touching the transformation version, because it's fine. It's fine as it is. It's a cheap alternative characters that you can play for every class, but you don't go for high ceiling. Then you can just play that class and funnel all that gold to somewhere else. You just do that. Now Reaper. I'm gonna give you my honest opinion, chat. I don't like Reapers. I think it's a good class. It is a good class. It is one of the best entropy class that goes swiftness. The reason being is it has enough utility to move around. Reaper is the only class that can counter from the back, and that's actually really important. But what's important here is if you guys are a Reaper main, and if you enjoy Reaper, please do keep on playing. Because what is going to happen for this particular class, I think they're just going to get a little bit more QOL change. That's what I think. The Thirst's comfort zone is so much higher than Moon, I think. And the reason why is because Moon needs to use her skill code Nightmare to gain meter. Thirst doesn't. That's actually really huge. Because imagine you're doing DPS as Moon, and you have to use your Nightmare to fill up your meter, and the boss does a counter. And no one can counter from the back, and you're the only one who can counter from the back, but your Nightmare's on cooldown. That's unfortunate, right? But Thirst Reaper, they actually don't need to use Nightmare on cooldown every time. So the comfort zone that the Reaper have with the utility, it feels separated. Sounds like it, so a particular class should have like a cycle of synergy. For example, another case for Striker, right? Striker's counter. That kind of design, I don't like that kind of design. Does that make sense? If a certain class role is A, B, and C, they should work together at least. It feels like you have a spork. That's what it is. That's Reaper. This is Reaper. It's like you don't know if it's a spoon or a fork, and it's worse than either two. So I think they might change it a little bit so that it works a little bit more smoother. So you have a fork and a spoon. And as for Moon players, when's the last time you guys had a Nightmare ready to go for counter? You probably used it for meter already. Let's be honest, chat. And if you say yes to that, you're just a better Reaper player than everyone else. And for Thirst, you would think it like this. How come They can't counter at all. Counter's so easy with Reaper because you're playing Thirst. That's the biggest difference. And what is the biggest difference here? Does Moon does that much more damage than Thirst? I'm gonna say Moon does more, but like I don't think it does that much more than Thirst does. So it is what it is. It's so weird. It's weird. There's a reason why these two engravings are cheap in Korea, because it's not that popular. Now I hope you guys understood that. I hope you guys understood it, because like we can keep going about a conversation on like the Reaper hate or whatever. But again, to wrap it up, if you guys are playing Reaper and if you enjoy it, keep on playing, because you can only go up from here. Imagine, Chad, imagine this. Imagine you play Moon Reaper, you have a QOL change. Nightmare doesn't give you a meter gain, but other skills give you a little bit more meter gain, so that you can have Nightmare as a counter option and utility. That is so much better. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. How to make a class more enjoyable instead of like DPS all the time, right? Then they just drop Nightmare for something else? Well, if they do that, yeah, then that means you have an option. Does that make sense? That means you have an option to do stuff. For example, okay, then I'm gonna take off the utility to do more damage. You can do that. It gives people an option to do it instead of like a half-ass left-right, like give you a half-ass spork, and you have no choice to do back and forth, and you have no choice to make your build unique. This is a good one. Surge versus RE. So let me tell you the conclusion of Surge versus RE. RE can't be better than Surge, hands down. If anyone disagrees, you should go play both and check it out. Surge's difficulty is a little bit different. Surge's difficulty is not calculated for your mechanical skills. Surge's difficulty is based on your knowledge of the raid. For example, this is even me. I'm bad at Surge, by the way, but I'm getting a little better. But that's the fun part about the game anyways. You have to understand when the boss goes DR. You have to understand when the boss goes countdown. You have to understand when you're actually the mechanic. And you build meter and you build stack while you're doing a mechanic too. RE, on the other hand, it requires no brain. The reason why RE doesn't need a brain is because you can just spam it. Build meter, spam. Build meter, spam. Build meter, spam. That's RE. But if you land every single skill on the back, and if you rotate perfectly, it is about, to me, it can go up to Surge level of damage. Because think about it this way. Surge is stacking all the stuff. Stacking all the things. He's about to land Surge. The boss goes DR. But that means Surge does 0 damage, right? This is also why I have said at the very beginning, Surge is shit on homework runs. The reason why is because Surge never gets to be MVP in Valton, because by the time Surge stacks up 20, the boss is already dead. So RE is going to do all the damage before you land one Surge in Valton. So going back into it, this is going to be a number change, and I think this is going to be a QOL change. And the reason why I think this way, RE operates so weirdly. I don't know why. I don't understand how RE operates, actually. You land Surge, you have the Surge's buff for the whole time, and then you rotate more skills, you Surge again, and then you rotate again, you Surge again. Like, are you supposed to be a support, or are you supposed to be like a swiftness back attack class, right? Surge seems like a very good back attack class, right? Like, as in, it's a back attack burst class. The number change and QOL change, the reason why I think it this way is considering that this class, considering she has a synergy almost as good as the major synergy classes like Gunlancer, it should not do this much damage. You either take away the synergy or you lower the damage. They have both. They have best of both worlds. That's the biggest complaint that most guys have. Deathblade has an attack speed, movement speed buff. They have a head attack, back attack synergy, and they do a lot of damage. Most people feel that it's not fair. If the class gets a slight nerf, whatever, right? Or a slight change in numbers, whatever, right? I don't think there's gonna be a major change for this class. But RE, so if you say something like, oh, is more major thing gonna change for RE? Yeah, I would say so. Compared to Surge. So specialist, I'm gonna say it very briefly because you guys don't have it yet. Artist as a support doesn't really need change. She's perfect. I'd be surprised if they change something on Artist. But the solo DPS as well, they might nerf it a little bit so that they can just focus on solo DPS. We're waiting for a support, and a support applies, and he's DPS support. How mad would you be? Imagine you guys waiting for gate 6, bro Shaza, for 2 hours, and then someone applies, a paladin, and they go, oh my god, finally we can play. And then you notice he's a DPS paladin. Like, how mad would you be? I'd be pretty mad. Let's talk about artist support a little bit more. When artist comes out, it's easy for me to do a guide because I actually play that class a lot. She gets accepted a lot too, and the reason being is she has cleanse, she has teleport, as in like you can just take the gate. Her uptime, her marking is very good. Her uptime of buff is also very good, and her identity buff for 10% damage is phenomenal. For the party that is designed to do a lot of DPS, I think Artist's party is really good for non-equalized content. Overall, she can control heal or DPS very freely compared to Bard. At the same time, her stagger is also very good too. She feels like jack of all trades and master of all except one. That kind of feel. Her push immune is pretty bad. That's about it. Aeromancer and Aritst and Drizzle. So, you guys remember what Saint said about Aeromancer? And then I said that like this is what I think as well. Considering how easy it is to do DPS with her, the numbers are very, very, very high. Okay, so imagine you play Mayhem, but you don't have the HP nerf. Wouldn't it be easy to do DPS with Mayhem Zerk? Her AoE kit is very huge. She has synergy. She's fast, so therefore she can be something like, let's say a Taijutsu Scrapper, the new Taijutsu Scrapper, right? Not the old one, but easier with bigger numbers. That is what it is. And Drizzle, it feels like Reflux Sork, but better. And this is because of what? This class is new. You want the new classes to be, very popular. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a number change here. So basically, this is the same effect, by the way. Everything doesn't need to be nerfed. If a weaker class gets buffed, they're technically getting nerfed because they're not getting changed, right? They always like, you should nerf this class. They keep saying nerf, nerf, nerf. But the thing is, if you buff everything else, it's the same thing. Was that a great chat? That was a great conversation. I wanted to go through them all, and then we have other things to talk about as well. So this is like the prediction that I thought about talk about with the commentary a little bit on it. Now, we're gonna get to some of the fun part, right?